Masaccio's chase of Adam and Eve from the earthly paradise. Explication for our children. The painter Masaccio shows us Adam and Eve not so much chased from the Garden of Eden as driven further into the desert of temptation, replacing the garden for those who sought to see beyond it. It was Adam who looked outside the garden, desirous of beholding what God the Father beheld, namely the raison d'être of the garden, the mystery hidden at the garden's dawn. Adam sought the truth of Paradise's order of things independently of God's law. The paternal law was mistaken for an obstacle to the attainment of truth. The result was a terrifying vision of abysmal chaos. Adam was lost in his vision. On the other hand, it is through Eve, or through the senses, that Adam falls into temptation. Accordingly, Masaccio shows us Adam covering his eyes while Eve covers her private parts. Eve's fault pertains to the senses, while Adam's fault pertains to reason. Adam is ashamed of his error, while Eve is ashamed of her physical weakness, her mortality. Adam's error pertains to questions of principles rather than appearances. Adam is distraught, given that he miscalculated his actions, having followed the wrong advice of the senses. NOS INDUCAS IN TENTATIONEM. To best understand the whole dynamics of Masaccio's painting, let us turn to the primary Christian oratio, or prayer, the Pater Noster, or Our Father. The verse objecting to our being led into temptation, there where the Latin reads "Ne nos inducas in tentationem," is followed by one invoking a positive outcome, namely deliverance from the world of evil, suggesting that temptation is ultimately a divine test, the outcome of which is to be good. Libera nos a malo, or free us from evil, is the alternative disclosed by our being led into temptation. The leading into temptation yields to a deliverance from the evil following our failure to overcome evil on our own. The oratio invokes the Father to undo the punishment, given our recognition of failure to save ourselves. Divine grace manifests itself as we take heed of a memento mori. The divine fulfills reason upon its failure. The prayer calls God to reverse his sentence, which Masaccio represents accurately. Upon our recognizing our failure, God shall no longer hold fast to his sentence. He will have used his punishment to transform our fault into a felix culpa, a fault converted into a means for the attainment of happiness. The Pater Noster as a whole recognizes man's dependence upon his God, ending with the reversal of the paternal punishment for our mistaken assumption that we could be like God independently of God, that we could be a law unto ourselves. The prayer's reenactment of the chase from Eden, or rather of God's driving us into a world of temptation, shows us that the driving in question is overcome by our dependence upon God to deliver us from evil, to spare us the danger of being overcome by evil. As we recognize that only God can deliver us from evil, God no longer shall test us by driving us into a valley of tears.